Welcome to the Rotary Club of Seattle, where we work to build healthy communities. My name is Jan Levy, and I am your president this year. Stop that. That wasn't to get cheers. Thank you. And just in case you're curious, the best advice I ever received from a leader was always to use the bathroom before you go into a meeting or up to make a speech. It's really good advice, and it came from a woman leader, of course. Can we have the landing? As we begin our meeting, I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and other Coast Salish nations. We acknowledge the displacement of Native communities from this land while we are honoring the endurance of the Duwamish people who still live here, and we honor with gratitude the land itself. Please be seated. So in case you're wondering about this step stool, at our last meeting, several people I admire greatly suggested that we needed something for me to stand on, as I was too short for the podium. So people my mother was 5 feet tall, and they always told her they thought she was taller than that. And her reply was always, "That's because I think tall." Well, I'm afraid I inherited that characteristic because I also think tall. Obviously, I'm not as tall as I think I am. So thank you to those of you who suggested after our last meeting that I step up. So that's what I've done. They were right. Now I can see all of you. And guess what? I can even see that monitor with the slides on them. We have a fabulous program for you today as we continue to explore this month's theme of leadership and what it means to build healthy communities. We will be introducing 2 new members. Then we will get to hear from former Governor Christine Gregoire about the challenges facing our region. And most importantly, we get to be together in this wonderful space. As we told all of you at our last meeting, our club is known for singing. At this time, please welcome Don Murphy and Burr Stewart to lead us in today's song. And I think he's going to ask that you all rise.
Please do rise. Sometimes we sing songs without really thinking of the words that we sing. It's the this is about the War of 1812. Remember from your middle school U.S. history. Brits took Washington. The British troops then burned the White House, and then they headed north to Baltimore and started firing on, lined up all their Armada ships out in the harbor, including ships that came from France. So it was almost the entire British Armada that was there, and started throwing it at Fort McHenry. It went on from the morning of September 13th for more than 24 hours. And if you could imagine being in that fort, imagine the smoke-filled sky illuminated by the glow of wrenching and bloody explosions. And the next morning at Reveille, the commander of the fort ordered a huge 30 by 42-foot flag raised over the fort in defiance of the continuing barrage. And then later in the morning, the Brits were running out of ammunition, and so unable to take Baltimore, set off to south where they lost the war at the Battle of New Orleans. Francis Scott Keyes was a wealthy attorney and patriot. He rode out that September night on a merchant ship in the Baltimore harbor behind the Brits. When he woke to this scene, he wrote his poem called Defense of Fort McHenry, published a few days later in a Baltimore newspaper. He said, "Do you see it? The flag, that flag, our flag is still there. Let us sing together. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proud we hail at the twilight's glass gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars were so garrulous fly? O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets ran glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, see, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you.
Thank you, Don, and thank you, Burr. I also have a couple of other thank yous. I want to thank Sue McNabb and Paul Spieldener. Where's Paul? Thank you for serving as greeters. And Dan Mead-Smith, thank you for being our meeting reporter today. My understanding is that we have several visitors, visiting Rotarians and guests. Will all of you please stand and be recognized? If you're not a member, welcome all of you today. Thank you all. At this point, let's just make sure I didn't miss anything here. At this point, I would like to invite Tracy Brown to join me on stage. Tracy is one of our new members. So just come on over here, Tracy. So I realize that normally the Rotary president is not the one that does member introductions, but I've known Tracy Brown for over 30 years, and it's a real joy for me to be able to introduce her to you today. Tracy is a seasoned professional with more than 3 decades of experience in diversity, equity, and inclusion. She's what I like to call a cross-sector athlete, having worked in both the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Tracy's the founder and board chair of something called Healthy Smart Homes, which is a nonprofit dedicated to addressing economic disparities and that affect quality of life, particularly for Black and brown people. Today, she and her team lead statewide outreach efforts and housing counseling efforts for the Covenant Home Ownership Program. This is a landmark initiative under the 2023 Washington Covenant Home Ownership Act, aimed at remedying the impacts of racial covenants and redlining. A proud Seattle native, although she did not go to Garfield, Tracy started her career at IBM, but followed her passion for public service to the State Human Rights Commission, where she created Washington's Fair Housing Unit and served as its first fair housing manager. Later, she was recruited by the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, where she was able to establish the first office of DEI. She also served as executive director of the Fair Housing Center of Greater Boston and has held leadership roles within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Here in Seattle, she served as a civil rights commissioner for both the city of Seattle and King County. Tracy's commitment to civil rights is deeply rooted in her family's history. And I love this. Her great-grand-uncle, Dr. George Edmund Haynes, co-founded the National Urban League in 1910. That was 1 year after his friend, W.E.B. Du Bois, co-founded the NAACP. Dr. Haynes was the first African-American to receive a doctorate in sociology from Columbia University. Tracy holds a bachelor's from UW, 2 master's degrees from Seattle UN Tufts, and 2 executive education certificates from Harvard. She's also a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and one of her proudest moments came when she was able to present the Washington State Human Rights Award to one of its founders, Bertha Pitts Campbell. Like me, Tracy is a leadership junkie. She has alumni status in Leadership Tomorrow, where we met, Leadership USA, Leadership America, and the Kettering Foundation's leadership program. She was commissioned a Kentucky colonel in 1996 for her commitment to public service. Tracy is also an expressionist, using words to uplift others through her inspirational note cards from Wings That Soar. You'll find samples of the work on your tables, or I guess they were on your chairs, which I'm giving you as gifts. Tracy and her significant other, Greg Akins, whom she's known since they were 16, are avid jazz fans, having traveled coast to coast for jazz festivals. Clearly, Rotary's motto of service above self has long defined Tracy's professional and personal life. Please join me in welcoming our newest member, Tracy Brown, to Seattle 4. And this is for you. That way. Mark Wright and Andrew Lewis, if you will come up for our next introduction.
I've always wanted to be 6'7". Yeah, sorry, it's not politically correct to make height jokes. Good afternoon, President Jan, fellow Rotarians and guests. I'm honored to introduce Andrew Lewis as our newest member. Andrew was proposed for membership by past President John Bridge. So Andrew is probably a familiar face to some of you. He was your representative, some of you, on the Seattle City Council from 2020 to 2024. I'll have more on that in just a minute. Andrew is a proud Seattle native, born and raised in Ballard. He is the son of dedicated public servants. His dad worked for Seattle City Light. His mom was a nurse at Harborview. Andrew earned his BA in History and Political Science at the University of Washington, where he was named a Harry S. Truman Scholar. He went on to earn a master's degree from the London School of Economics, and later a law degree from UC Berkeley, where he served as a teaching assistant for former U.S. Labor Secretary Robert Reich. Andrew's passion for public service began early. He volunteered on campaigns in high school. He served on the Seattle Youth Council and was appointed to the Seattle Human Rights Commission before even finishing law school. His legal career includes roles as a deputy prosecutor and assistant city attorney with more than 20 jury trials under his belt. In 2020, Andrew, at 29 years old, made history as the youngest ever member of the Seattle City Council. That was reported in the media. Representing District 7, Andrew rolled up his sleeves. They stayed rolled up for 4 straight years. He championed ranked choice voting, which takes effect in Seattle 2 summers from now. He helped save the iconic Cinerama Theater and worked tirelessly to support local businesses. He also chaired key committees on public assets and homelessness and led initiatives that expanded housing, mental health support, and public safety downtown. Andrew also helped secure $19 million to revitalize the Queen Anne Community Center and played a key role in bringing Bumbershoot back to the Seattle Center. Outside of public office, Andrew is living his passion for arts and the environment. He serves on the board of the Seattle Opera, and he has held positions with the Seattle Aquarium, Woodland Park Zoo, and the Board of Health. Right now, he practices law at Van Ness Feldman, specializing in land use, environmental, and housing policy. On the personal side, Andrew lives in Lower Queen Anne with his wife, Laura, and their almost 3-year-old daughter, who's a precocious traveler. The family shares a love for travel, so much so that their daughter already has more stamps in her passport than most of us adults. They are huge fans of Rick Steves and love exploring new places together. Andrew describes himself as a labor Democrat, a pragmatic, collaborative leader who believes in getting things done and making a difference in the community. Andrew, we are proud to welcome you, someone whose passion for service and community so clearly reflect the spirit of Rotary. On behalf of everyone here, we're excited to have you join us, not only as a member, but a fellow steward of the city we all love. And we look forward to rolling up our sleeves right alongside you. Welcome to Rotary. Yeah.
Andrew,
Oh, thank
your Rotary pin,
you. And here, I'll put this on now that I've earned it.
and that one too. Welcome again to both Andrew and Tracy. This feels so weird standing up on this thing. I'm going to ask that both of you stand by the door at the end of the program to greet people as they leave so they can meet you. It is now my incredible honor to introduce our speaker today, the distinguished public servant, a respected civic leader, and someone who has made an indelible mark on the state of Washington, former Governor Gregoire. I can't think of anyone who exemplifies the healthy community's definition of leadership more than she does. Governor Gregoire has dedicated her life to public service. She served more than 2 terms as Washington's 22nd governor, after already having made history as our state's first female attorney general. In both roles, she built a reputation as a principled leader, a collaborative problem solver, and a tireless advocate for the people of Washington. As Attorney General, she argued cases before the U.S. Supreme Court and led the national fight that resulted in the landmark settlement with Big Tobacco, securing billions in public health and anti-smoking initiatives. As governor, she steered our state through the Great Recession, balancing the budget while protecting critical investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. She championed environmental progress, helping to establish the Western Climate Initiative, and she laid the groundwork for clean energy to grow in our state. She also launched the Race to the Top education reforms and expanded access to college for Washington students. But Governor Gregoire's leadership didn't stop after she left office. Today, she is the CEO of Challenge Seattle, which is a coalition of the region's top CEOs working together to address our most pressing civic and economic issues, from homelessness and transportation to workforce development and public health. Under her leadership, Challenge Seattle has brought businesses and governments together in innovative ways, including helping to coordinate the private sector response during the pandemic and pushing forward equitable access to digital learning. Governor Gregoire exemplifies the Rotary ideal of service above self. She continues to lead with purpose, humility, and an unwavering belief in what's possible when we work together. Please join me in welcoming Governor Gregoire to the podium.
Yes. I'll take you up on this little Patty Murray stool here. Thank you, Jan, very much. And thank you all for the invitation. You know, the question was asked at the luncheon table, what's advice that I've received? And I shared one, but I have one that I think has stuck and a lesson learned from it. When I first became governor and the governor's photographer came into the governor's mansion to take photos of some folks who were present, the photographer said, the one thing I want you all to do is put your hands to your sides. If you fold your hands, as most men do, in front of yourself, you won't like the picture you get when you get back. I didn't really understand it. We had our first state dinner at the White House. We got a picture back with President Bush and his wife and Mike and I. And sure enough, Mike was standing like this. And I said, well, it does look like you've got to go to the bathroom. So remember that in those photos. You know, it is a delight for me to be the CEO of Challenge Seattle. I think Jan has done a commendable job in describing what we do. And these CEOs really are very much like you, with the same kind of commitment to making Seattle, the region, and the great state of Washington even better. So I tried to think a little bit about the topic that you, John, actually asked me to talk about civic engagement. And I kept coming back to a question that I have for all of you in this room, and that is, how do we engage as individuals, as a community, as a state, so that we can take on the big and complex issues that we face and define the future of our state? Now, that question may be obvious to you, but let me just say, we live in, as you well know, very challenging times. We're challenged here in Seattle. We're challenged in the region. We're challenged in the state. We're challenged in the country, and we're challenged globally. So to me, that's what you're about. You're the model of the kind of leadership and civic engagement that can take those challenges and turn them into opportunities and make something real and leave a legacy to our children. Just a few blocks from here, in my opinion, is an example of what we can do when we collectively come together and work as a community. And of course, what I'm talking about is Seattle's incredible waterfront. For decades, the waterfront was separated from downtown. From downtown, all you saw was the viaduct. The viaduct, which at the time had become very noisy, had become dark, and was beginning to show its age in not a positive way. But over the years of planning, debate, public input, yes, civic engagement, we envisioned and ultimately delivered something absolutely transformational. We'll celebrate it on Friday. And that is, we now are home to the waterfront. The waterfront sees us and vice versa. In the process of making it possible, we talked to the folks in Boston, we talked to the folks in Vancouver, British Columbia, we talked to folks in San Francisco, and they said to us, you're going to take a lot of guff along the way, but when it's all said and done, we can assure you it will be worth it. So I ask you, as you open that waterfront on Friday, to parks and pathways and gathering spaces, despite all the controversy that we went through, it was worth it. Don't you think? I thank everybody who played a major role, from legislative leadership to city council leadership, to the engineers that did it, to the voters who said no to certain things along the way, if you may recall, to the folks who on the waterfront stepped up in a volunteer basis and said, let's make the best of it. And they have, and we'll see it on Friday. Now, I'll admit, as any kind of controversial subject has, I've got my scars from it, but the idea that we took down the viaduct made the tunnel a reality, and at the time was the longest tunnel in the world. Then somebody beat us by a half inch. But I hope that you are proud of it, and it is a wonderful legacy to the future generations of our community. I think all of us need to bring that kind of stamina, bold thinking, willingness to engage. If we're going to face the kind of challenges that we all see in the region and not only think about the here and the now, but really think about the future. So I'm not going to parse words today. I think the issues are too important. I really want to talk to you openly and honestly about the challenges and a little bit about what, if you're not aware of, our reputation is outside Seattle, outside the state of Washington. I reflect on my time in office and my current work at Challenge Seattle. I really can't think of a more critical time for all of us in having to think about what our future we want to have in this region for our families and for future generations. We need bold thinking. We need civic engagement. We absolutely need each and every one of you. Millions more people are expected to call Washington home in the coming decades. By 2050 in the corridor, we will add an additional 3 to 4 million people. Are we ready? No, we're not. The choice we will make will shape whether this is a place where families want to grow, businesses want to thrive, or we step back from this challenge. Because the truth is, Washington's competitiveness, our ability to attract business, to grow jobs, to create a vibrant future depends on how we prioritize the challenges that we're facing. Today, I want to mention 3: transportation, housing, and a healthy business climate. The bottom line is this: we can't compete in the global economy if people can't afford to live here. We can't compete if people coming here find themselves stuck in traffic. We can't compete if employers face endless barriers to success. And you know what? We can't wait to solve these problems. We are already facing a 150,000 unit housing gap. We're already seeing warning signs. The lowest construction starts since the Great Recession, and 80% drop in Seattle multifamily housing permits, and rising costs daily. Meanwhile, traffic congestion is back to what it was pre-COVID, and Washington now ranks 48th in the country in terms of the cost of doing business. Above all, I am worried whether we're beginning too bogged down in delay and red tape and have come to accept it, that that's just the way it is, and there's nothing we can do about it, that we're focused on dollars, we're not focused on outcomes. Think about what's possible when we have a mindset where we understand in housing, time is money. When we understand in education, it's about our outcomes. When we understand the way to solve these problems is a true public-private partnership. Imagine a future where a nurse in Everett can get on to high-speed rail and get to her job or his job within 30 minutes in downtown Seattle. Imagine a future where businesses look at whether they should invest in Washington State and they say that's the place because they get things done. Imagine a future where AI improves all of our lifestyles, whether it's healthcare or government or whatever, because we've used it the ethically responsible way and we've used it for good. That, I think, comes up, for example, in permitting for housing. But to get there, we need to start thinking and acting now. It means big, bold thinking on how do we get the problem of affordable housing solved. We need well over 1 million in the not too distant future that we don't see a future in right now. We need to radically think about permitting rather than months and years, days. We need to invest in our infrastructure and think about a future where something like high-speed rail is a reality. And we need to build a business climate that's healthy, competitive, supporting innovation, and playing a game at the table with all of us. So what is our reputation today, you might ask? What's our reputation on housing? Well, the issue goes beyond unaffordability. For far too long, we put up barriers and we have actually disincentivized the construction of new housing. Whether it's low-income housing, middle-income housing, we have done just that. From restrictive zoning to costly fees to local opposition that draws years of delay. We need to unleash the private sector. When it comes to low-income housing, I want to credit our Washington State Legislature and what's gone on here in the city and the county. I think real investments have been made and we're seeing the results. Do we need to do more? Absolutely. But the public sector cannot address housing that's for workforce, that's middle income. That's up to the private sector. So how do we unleash them? Well, let's talk about Aurora. How many of you have been down Aurora of recent? How many of you seen all the vacancies? How many of you seen a place that looks like a disaster and where unfortunately there's too much crime going on? Well, what do we do about it? Let it sit? Let it sit vacant when we need housing? No, we rezone it. We rezone it and we build communities. So how about those vacant strip malls? Nothing's going on there. That is a total waste. How about my personal favorite? Former Toys R Us, huge buildings, huge parking lots sitting vacant. What do we need for housing? Housing. We need land. We need land to build on. We've got it. We're just not using it. So how about we start rezoning and incentivizing that kind of construction? What's our reputation on permitting? Well, it takes too long. Whether it's a small business that's a startup, too complicated and takes too long, affordable housing, launching a clean energy project, the red tape stretches out simply beyond months, sometimes to years. And if it's a complex project, it can take as much as a decade. Take a look, if you would, at California and the ultra high-speed rail they're trying to put in place there. Are they failing? Yes. What are one of the reasons? Remember now, ultra high-speed rail is one of the most environmentally friendly things you can do. Cars are the major contributor. You're taking cars off the road. It's electric. You're reducing emissions. The list goes on. It's been under environmental review for 12 years. That is not using our permitting and review process in a way that makes us safer, more environmentally friendly, and better. So we need to make sure that we look at the red tape and find ways to deal with it. Time is money when it comes to building, and we must radically reduce the time and the cost for doing projects like startups, like making sure that we have affordable housing. So let's modernize and streamline to match the urgency of the challenge. Seattle's recent executive order by the mayor shows real promise, and I'll tell you why I know that. Because a similar EO was issued by the mayor of LA. And one of our homegrown companies has benefited from it. They rezoned commercial to allow a housing. Costco in 90 days had a permit to build a Costco store and 800 units of low income and middle income housing. That's the kind of opportunity we've got if we'll avail ourselves of it. Innovation is happening up and down the Cascadia corridor. In Kelowna, British Columbia, they partnered with Microsoft using AI. Their permitting that took months, now takes 10 days. Not for all of them, but for the vast majority of them, if they're a priority, affordable housing, starting up new businesses. But to truly meet our housing goals, we need more than policy. We need a culture shift. And what I mean by that is we need the public and the private sectors working together to get this problem solved. We need to work side by side with a green light on those that are building affordable housing that comply with safety and environmental rules and so on. New housing, new projects, instead of defaulting to no, finding a way to work together to get to yes. What's our reputation on infrastructure? It's defined, unfortunately, as the Seattle process. We've known about it. It's there. We are known for planning time, visiting, revisiting, redrafting, until bold projects stall, shrink, or die. Let's embrace, let's commit to the big future-focused investments like high-speed rail and how people live and move in the community and deliver on real-world timelines. I went to Japan to look at ultra-high-speed rail there. It originated there in the early 70s. Go to Europe, it's all over the place. And we act like it's some foreign thing, putting high-speed rail in the United States. And if you go to Japan and you ask the fundamental question, what does on time mean? On time means Not 30 seconds before, not 30 seconds after, but exactly on time. You ask how many fatal fatalities you had or serious injuries, and the answer is, since the early 70s, 0. That's what our people need. That's what we can do, and we should get about the business of it. Our reputation with regard to business climate, unpredictable and sometimes hostile. Companies, investors see an area, our city, county, state, where the rules change all too often, where costs are rising, where taxes continue to grow, and economic growth seems to be an afterthought. Seattle, if you're not aware of it, has one of the highest corporate tax rates in the country. We should all want a region where we have good jobs, thriving small, medium, and large businesses. So let's make economic development a clear, coordinated policy that we, in a public-private partnership, make happen at every level of government. And it's not that we can sit here and do nothing. It's urgent. We must act now. This is where you come in. This is about civic engagement. We can't leave this to others. It's about each of us getting engaged and getting involved. I can't tell you how many people got involved in that waterfront. It was amazing, sometimes challenging, but you know what? It was good. It was engagement. We cared and we did something about it. None of this happens if we don't work in a public-private partnership across sectors, across every opportunity that we can get, pushing together to make things right. We have to move beyond piecemeal fixes. We need to move beyond pessimism. We have to move beyond thinking that the policymakers can be driven only by those minority of voices that they may hear, and let them hear from all of you in this room and your friends and your neighbors. We have to acknowledge that money isn't always the answer. Money is not always the answer to address every challenge. Indeed, we need to be honest about outcomes. There's where we need to be focused. Are we getting what we invested on? Are we getting what we hoped for? Are we getting what our taxpayer money was intended to achieve? We've seen amazing, good spending on education, homelessness, and housing. It's been dramatic over the last several years. But if you look at the outcomes, you'll be disappointed, I can assure you. So we don't keep putting, as Einstein allegedly said, more money after the same thing and expect a different result. We take that good money and we do things wherever it's needed to make things different, improve, and deliver to the taxpayers of the state of Washington. We need to stop making decisions that hold back our housing supply, our transportation system, or our economy. We need to scale, and we need to have the ambition to know we in this state have the ability to scale. That's who we are. We can't move backwards. Not saying, by the way, that every permit application should be granted. To the contrary, I was the head of the Department of Ecology at one time in my lifetime. We need to make sure we are doing it right. I led the state when it comes to safety, making sure our workers and our folks are safe. I believe in those, but they do not have to stop progress. They do not have to fail us. Whether we're in meetings like today, or whether we're advocating a policy, or we're supporting a partnership in the community, engagement matters. It's not just relying on our elected officials or our policymakers. It's up to us. If something fails, look in the mirror and ask ourselves, could we have done something about it? Should we have done something about it? Was it our responsibility? Our state, our region, our city needs you, not by sitting on the sidelines, but by getting engaged in every conceivable way possible, meeting the challenges head on, being bold, seeing the urgency, being united. So let's look out 20 years from now. And when people look back at this moment, I hope they will say that was the time when the leadership of the great state of Washington came together. They took on the challenges of the day, and they left a legacy for future generations that we can all be proud of. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. I love it even after I was that honest.
Thank you, Governor. We have 10 minutes for questions, which is really rare. So we were going to take those if anyone has one brimming. Oh, on Lillian's side.
I'll take it over here. But while we're getting over here, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you. I want to lead by just saying, how do we maintain optimism about high-speed rail when it's going to take us another couple decades to get to Ballard on the light rail?
So some of the reasons I've articulated about how we slow things down, costs increase every day, and we need to accept that, acknowledge, and do something about it. Not just let it go and let it happen. But when it comes to high-speed rail, let me just assure you, if we look back in the day of Dan Evans was governor, remember, he wanted what we're now getting today. Do you know how much money it cost back then compared to what we're paying now? We could have had it in place. So you can't wait for the crisis. I can assure you in 20 years with that population increase, our roads, our businesses, our healthcare, our housing is going to be challenged. So rather than waiting, and I know, trust me, I know, legislators think on the House side 2 years and the Senate side 4 years. We have to think 20 years to make the kinds of changes that will be necessary for the quality of life we need and we want.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Gregoire. I'm Eric Lashever. I appreciate your focus on public-private partnerships and your mention of North Aurora. The issue I have a two-part question. The first part is very quick. How do we engage with Challenge Seattle on an issue? And the second, more complicated, is FIFA World Cup is coming to town a year from now, and it will bring all kinds of benefits to the city, but it also will call out some dark actors. And I'm thinking specifically of sex trafficking, which is why I'm glad you called out North Aurora. What ideas do you have about how the private and public sector, along with Rotary as a partner, can be effective in addressing sex trafficking in conjunction with the FIFA World Cup?
Okay. Are there any other questions? So the first question with regard to Challenge Seattle, we have 20, as Jan mentioned, we have 23 members, 3 nonprofits and the rest for-profit. It's CEO only at our meetings. One of the pledges we made, and I bet you will understand, it began about 10 years ago. I was the first to serve in the role I'm in. I said I'd sign up for it for 6 months because I wasn't sure the business community really wanted to engage civically. I'm 10 years later, and yes, they do, is the answer. But we don't lobby. We don't advocate. I bet you can understand who put that in there. But what we do is we do reports, oftentimes to the legislature. First one about the fear of the crisis of housing in 2019, where we shared with the legislature, this is what's coming, this is what's happening, you need to act now. They didn't pay attention. But then a few years later, we issued a second, and they absolutely went to work because it had become clear. We will issue a report in October that will talk about the threats to the entire Cascadia corridor and the success that we've enjoyed and the vibrancy we've enjoyed. 10 years ago, we were at the top of the heap in a whole lot of things. We're still very competitive. Don't make that mistake of thinking otherwise. We are, but we're under grave threat. There's something to be done. We've got recommendations for the legislature to consider. So we will also issue in September a report that calls for an integrated, financially sustainable transportation system. Now, you may think that's bureaucratic gobbledygook. Well, no, it's not. It's actually to say, connect what we have by way of transportation in the city to what we have in the region, to what we have in the state. Today, We do ferries, we do air, we do roads, we do rail. We don't connect them. Now, I don't want to suggest that's easy. When we studied it, we realized the only countries that have ever done that are all ruled by dictators. So there's a challenge there. And we have to be financially sustainable. We keep kicking, I mean, for those of us, thank goodness, who have electric cars, are we paying to drive on the road? No, we're not. We're not paying gas taxes, okay? Who's still paying gas taxes? All too often those who least can afford it. So we've not got to find a new model. So we're inviting that. That's what we do, okay? On the sex trafficking issue. So there is immense effort going on between particularly British Columbia and Washington State on making sure that I mean, globally, we will be watched by millions of people, far and away exceeds any kind of thing that we have in the US, whether it's football or basketball or whatever. It's a golden opportunity for us to show what a great place we are. And we want that to happen. And so we're working hard with BC, making sure places are safe and secure, making sure we've got our best foot forward, making sure that we're addressing all of their problems. So specifically sex trafficking, I can't tell you, but I can tell you there is efforts going on everywhere to make sure that anybody who comes here enjoys it, loves it, and feels safe and secure. Oh.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. To change gears a little bit, I love that question, Eric, but we have seen, like you mentioned, some significant strides in Seattle. So some very impactful zoning changes that were put in place. So if we look at the zoning changes that have been made to allow us to build more multifamily, and we don't look at places like strip malls or Toys R Us, what is the middle ground? What do we do in that middle space to make more productive construction for multifamily?
Well, much of the work that's gone on in Seattle has been very controversial, right? Because people have enjoyed single family homes in a community and don't want multifamily, don't want a whole bunch of things. So the reason why we did the work we did was because we said it's all about land. And then we asked, is there any land that's not being used or any land that can be converted? So we've talked, for example, with the churches, and many of them, in my personal opinion, unfortunately, are closing down. We've asked them to open up to low-income housing as how do they convert and do what their mission really is. So that's what we're trying to do rather than say, we want to get into this controversial subject. I've always said in Seattle, density is a 4-letter word, and it is. So how do we take land that isn't being used or not being used well and convert it to housing? If we did that, it is much, what I've suggested in terms of the rezoning, much more important environmentally. I can show you statistics to prove that. You have public transportation already, and you're not opening up anything that the neighborhood's going to have a big problem with. So here sits a golden opportunity at our doorstep to really, in concert with what's being done here, work together to open up the door to a whole lot more affordable housing.
So we have one last question and we have to wrap up.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, Governor Gregoire, if we could talk you into rerunning. You know, I've not heard an elected official anywhere in this state give a talk like you just gave, anywhere. And when you were governor, this state was number 5 or 6 in attractiveness for business in the United States. We are now, as you said, 48. Can you or any of your organizations do anything to get our legislature and our governor to start thinking the way you think and get this business back, to get the state back to a business-friendly state?
I'm going to get them to think like I do. No, thank you first and foremost for what you said. And no, I'm not running for anything. But it was an honor and a privilege to serve. I just want you all Whether you voted for me or not, it was an honor and a privilege to serve this great state. And I'm proud of it, absolutely proud of it. I don't think too often in elected officials, for example, there is a good understanding of what it takes in the housing arena. It's a complex area, far more complex than we may think of in this room. I've learned this by trying to study this. So we're trying to educate, to get people aware, and to get them aware of inaction is the worst thing we can be doing right now. We have to tackle it. We have to be bold. It's too big. It's too problematic. At the same time, as I mentioned in October, we're going to talk about business climate. And we're going to say, how did we get here? How do we get out of this? We need to remember that business, big bad business, is in fact a neighbor. And you know what? They care as much about the city, the county, and the state as the rest of us do. Their families are here. Their employees are here. The reason they created Challenge Seattle was to give back and to deal and to be good citizens and be civically engaged. So we want to make clear this isn't someplace else. This is Washington State. Our culture here is far different than other places that people are so angry at. So let's create that public-private partnership. Let's open the door to opportunity now. Let's get the good jobs. Let those jobs be here, Washingtonians, not being brought in from elsewhere because we can't find the talent here. It's here. If we could just give them the right opportunities to get the education that they need. So we're going to do our best this next session in particular. We're bringing the whole business community together to say, we care as much as you do. And by the way, they've never said no on taxes. That's not what the business community's position is. Their position is, let's tax when we need to, but let's get results from the taxes that we spend. So that's who they and what they are. Thank you all.
Thank you, Governor Gregoire, for joining us today. More importantly, thank you for your extraordinary leadership and service for all of us. As a thanks for your participation today, our club's foundation, the Seattle Rotary Service Foundation, has provided 600 servings of healthy produce for those in need through Harvest Against Hunger in your name. Thank you again for joining us. And thank you to those of you who donated to SRSF, which allows us to provide this donation.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Jay.
There's a few other thank yous for today. Thanks to Dorothy Bullitt for her sponsorship of today's program. I also want to thank Carl Benke and REB Enterprises and Bloodworks Northwest for their continuing support and sponsorship. And I want to thank a new sponsor, Baird, through Stephen Morse. I'd like to bring up Nicole, our Sergeant in Arms. She has some announcements to make.
Stand on it too, I think. All right. So we're going to run quickly through these slides because I'm a tiny bit behind. But we all know that the next meeting, Wednesday, July 30th, will be at Bell Harbor. So not here, a special one for the Sea Fair. And if you haven't witnessed it for our new Rotarians, it can be kind of funny. So just be prepared for things you have not seen at a normal Rotary meeting. I'll let that stand. And Carmen Best our new Rotarian, she is Queen. Is it Halcyon? Someone help me. Halcyon. Okay. So Halcyon, I will not be there. Jen will be taking my place. Thank you. Wednesday, August 6th, lunch meeting will be back here at the WAC with Jody Sanford. Sticking with Jan's theme of elements of a healthy community, we will be meeting with Jody Sanford. She's the Dean of the Evans School of Business at the UW. And next we have August 23rd. Oh, public policy? and governance, sorry, at the Evans School. We will have 2 people being interviewed by our own Mark Wright. We have at the Motif Hotel, one of only 4 times we won't be here. So again, remember, we won't be here on Wednesday, August 23rd. And this will be with Phyllis Campbell and Deanna Oppenheimer. Great conversation. And lastly, we have Wednesday, August 30th. Will be Zoom only, so you can sit at home or on your back porch. And Seattle Foundation CEO Alicia Washington. And all of this will be in the newsletter that Mary puts together that has a lot in there plus more. So do mark that. All right.
Don't take my paper. At our last meeting at your tables, you talked about leaders who help you become more than you ever thought possible. So one reason that I purchased the cards that were on your tables today is so that you can engage in the leadership practice of saying thank you. Max Dupre, who wrote the book, Leadership is an Art, always said that the first responsibility of a leader is to recognize reality. I think our leader today did that. And the last is to say thank you. And I would suggest that you take one of those cards and send it to the leader that you talked about last week and thank them for their mentorship. If they're no longer with us, send it to one of their family members. It means a lot. I know a woman who sent a thank you to the wife of one of her mentors, and she carried it around with her for the next several years until she died. Oprah Winfrey said, "The world's most prominent women leaders show the importance of honesty, courage, impact, and decisive action in leadership." We have certainly seen a great example of those qualities today in Governor Gregoire. I want to invite Tracy and Andrew to go to the back of the room so you can greet everyone as they exit. Thank you all for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you at Seafair next week. I have a feeling I'm going to be embarrassed by something, but I don't know what it is. We are adjourned.